first thing Stephanie St. Clair felt was pain. Not in her body, but in the sound. A kiss. Right beside her face. Slow, intimate, disrespectful. Her husband's voice followed. Low, relaxed, careless. I told you she
see,
wouldn't wake up.
I told you she is
Silence.
gone.
Then, a soft laugh. Amara. The woman Stephanie gave her own liver to, so she could live. The woman she loved more than her life. The woman she called my blood. If anyone would betray her, not Amara. Welcome to the Mafia's obsession, where power, betrayal, and obsession collide. If you think you've seen dangerous love before, then you're not ready for this. Because this story is not about love. It's about what happens when a queen goes silent and comes back for everything. Another kiss. Closer this time. Stephanie couldn't move, couldn't open her eyes, couldn't even breathe on her own. But her mind was awake, fully, sharp enough to understand one thing immediately. This was not grief. This was replacement. Amara stepped closer, so close her lips almost brushed Stephanie's ear. You always thought you were untouchable. But look at you now. Stephanie heard fabric shift, felt the presence hover over her. I took your husband, Amara whispered. I'm taking your throne. A breath, cold, satisfied. And when you finally die, her voice dropped to nothing. No one will even remember you ruled anything. Then, a slap. Sharp, violent, unnecessary. Across Stephanie's face. And that was the moment. Everything became clear. Not the betrayal. She already understood that. But the depth of it. Because people don't slap power unless they believe it's gone. Behind her, Li Zhongjai exhaled slowly. We waited 3 years for this, he said. 3 years. Stephanie processed that instantly. 3 years of silence. 3 years of them taking everything. 3 years of planning. And then, the truth he shouldn't have said. The summit made it easy, Li continued. They never saw it coming. Stephanie's mind locked in. The accident. Not random. Not external. Planned. From inside. By him. Amara laughed softly. You should have seen her convoy burn. I almost felt bad. Almost. Stephanie didn't react. Couldn't. But inside, everything aligned. The betrayal. The accident. The silence. And the biggest mistake they made. They thought she was gone. They thought she couldn't hear. They thought they had time. So Stephanie St. Clair made a decision. She would not move. She would not wake. She would not give them even a shadow of awareness. Because right now, her greatest power was this. They were telling her everything. And when she finally opened her eyes, she wouldn't be waking up. She would be ending something. The kiss did not stop. Stephanie lay still. Her body was cold, heavy, trapped. But her mind was awake, sharp, listening. Every sound felt louder than before. Every breath in the room felt closer. And that kiss, it was not hidden. It was not rushed. It was slow, like they had done it many times before, right beside her. Her husband's voice came again, low, calm, unbothered. I told you, she's gone. Gone. That word stayed in her head. Not dead. Gone, like she no longer mattered, like she had already been replaced. Amara laughed softly. You were right, she said. She's not coming back. Stephanie said nothing. She could not. But inside, something shifted. Not pain, not heartbreak, understanding. Her husband moved closer. She could feel it. His voice dropped. You worried too much, he said to Amara. I handled everything. Everything, that word echoed. What did he mean? Amara answered softly. You better have. A pause, then. You said the accident was clean. Stephanie's mind locked in. Accident. So it was true. Not fate. Not chance. It was not planned. Her husband sighed. It was perfect, he said. No witnesses. No mistakes. Stephanie's world became quiet. Not because of fear, but because everything started making sense. The crash, the fire, the silence after. It was never random. It was him. And she was lying here, listening to the man who tried to kill her, and the woman she saved, talking like she was already dead. And for the first time in 3 years, Stephanie St. Clair understood one thing clearly. This was not survival. This was war. Amara stepped closer. Stephanie could feel her presence. Too close, too comfortable, like this room now belonged to her. You know what's funny? Amara said. Her voice was soft, but cruel. You saved me. Silence. Stephanie remembered. Hospital lights. Doctors rushing. Amara dying. Her body shutting down. And without thinking, she made a choice. She gave her part of her liver to keep her alive, not as a favor, but as family. Amara continued. They said I wouldn't survive, she whispered. But you, a small laugh. You couldn't let me die. Stephanie stayed still, but her mind replayed everything. The pain, the recovery, the sacrifice, and now, this. I used to look at you like a god, Amara said. You had power, respect, everything. Then her tone changed. But I was wrong. Stephanie felt the shift. You weren't special, Amara said quietly. You were just in the way. Those words settled deep, cold, precise. Her husband chuckled. You wanted her life, he said, and now you have it. Amara did not deny it. I have more than that, she said. I have everything she built. Stephanie's thoughts slowed, focused, everything, her empire, her network, her power, all in their hands, because she could not move, because they believed she was gone. Amara leaned closer. So thank you, she whispered, for giving me life. Then, for giving me your world. Stephanie did not react, but inside, something hardened. Not anger, not yet. Something colder, something patient, because now she understood the truth. She didn't just save Amara, she created her enemy. Lee Jung-jae walked around the room, slow, confident, like he owned it, like he had always owned it. Stephanie listened carefully. You know what I hated the most? He said. No answer. He continued anyway. The way they looked at her, like she was untouchable. Stephanie stayed silent, but her mind followed every word. They never looked at me like that, he added. There it was, jealousy, deep, ugly. I stood beside her, he said. I learned everything. Another pause, and still, I was nothing. Amara spoke softly, but not anymore. Lee exhaled. No, he said, not anymore. Stephanie understood now. This was not just betrayal. This was hunger. He didn't just want her gone, he wanted to become her. She made it easy, Lee continued. She trusted me too much. Stephanie did not feel regret. Trust was not weakness, but now it had a cost. I knew her roots, he said. I knew her security. I knew when she would be alone. Each word hit like a quiet strike, planned, detailed, calculated. Amara asked one question. And the cartel? Stephanie focused harder. Lee answered calmly. They wanted control, he said. I gave them access. Stephanie's thoughts sharpened instantly. Cartel. So it was bigger than just them. They hit the convoy, Lee continued. Fast, clean, no survivors. Then he added, or so they thought. Silence filled the room. Stephanie remained still. But inside, everything changed. This was no longer personal. This was layered, deeper, more dangerous. And now she knew something important. She was not just betrayed, she was sold. Amara stepped closer again. Too close. Stephanie could feel her breath. You really thought you were powerful, she whispered. Stephanie said nothing. You walked into rooms like you owned the world. But look at you now! Then, a sharp sound, a slap. Hard, disrespectful, unnecessary. Stephanie felt it. Not as pain, but as a signal, because people do not slap power unless they believe it is gone. Amara leaned closer. I'm the queen now, she whispered. Stephanie's mind became still, very still. Lee laughed quietly. She earned it, he said. Amara smiled. You took too long to fall, she added. Stephanie processed everything. The accident, the betrayal, the takeover, all of it, clear, connected, complete. And in that moment, something inside her shifted, not emotionally, strategically, because now she had everything she needed, not revenge, information. Amara stepped back, satisfied. Lee followed. We should go, he said. Doctors will be back soon. Their footsteps moved away. The door opened, then closed. Silence returned. Machines continued their soft rhythm, and Stephanie St. Clair lay perfectly still. But inside, the most dangerous part of her was fully awake. Time passed. Stephanie did not know how long, minutes, maybe hours, but her mind did not rest. It worked. Every word she heard, she stored it. Every detail, she analyzed it. Cartel, husband, Amara, 3 years. Everything connected. Everything mattered. She tested her body. Nothing. No movement. No control. Still trapped. But that did not matter, because power was never just physical. It was knowledge. And now, she had it. Footsteps returned. Different this time. Doctors, nurses, talking softly. She's stable, one said. No change, another replied. Stephanie stayed still, listening, waiting, because now she understood her position. They thought she was gone. That was her advantage. If she woke now, they would hide everything. Like they would destroy evidence. They would prepare. But if she stayed like this, they would relax. They would talk. They would expose everything. And Stephanie St. Clair was not ready to act. She was ready to learn. Slowly, carefully, patiently, she made a decision. She would remain silent. She would remain still. She would remain forgotten. Because when she finally moved, when she finally opened her eyes, it would not be to survive. It would be to end everyone who thought she was gone. The room stayed quiet. But outside, the world was not. Stephanie's empire did not sleep. It watched. One of those watching was Malik, head of her security, a man who had followed her for years. He stood outside the hospital room. arms folded, eyes sharp. Something felt wrong. 3 years, and yet the visits had increased. Not from loyal people, but from Lee and that woman. Malik did not trust it. He turned to one of the guards. "How long were they inside?" he asked. 30 minutes, the guard replied. Too long. Malik's jaw tightened. "Next time," he said quietly, "you inform me before they enter." The guard nodded quickly. Malik looked back at the door. Stephanie St. Clair built her empire on control, and right now, something was slipping. He could feel it. And Malik was not the kind of man who ignored instincts. Because the last time something felt like this, blood followed. Across the city, meetings were happening, deals were being made, names were being spoken, and one name was missing. Stephanie St. Clair. Instead, another name had started appearing. Lee Jung-jae. Not respected, not feared, but tolerated. Chute because he stood where she once stood, and beside him, Amara, dressed in power she did not earn, speaking words that did not belong to her. "Control the ports," Lee said during a meeting. "We take full access this quarter." Some men nodded, others stayed quiet, because something was off. He spoke like a man trying to sound powerful, not a man who truly was. Amara stepped in. "Those who don't agree," she said calmly, "can leave." Silence. No one moved. Not because they feared her, but because they were waiting. Waiting to see if Stephanie was truly gone. Because if she wasn't, everyone in that room knew one thing. They were all dead. Back in the hospital, something changed. It was small, almost nothing, but it was real. Stephanie's finger moved, just slightly. So small no one saw it, except Malik. He had stepped into the room quietly, watching, always watching, and he saw it. His eyes locked. He stepped closer, slow, careful. "Boss," he whispered. No response, but he didn't need one, because he saw it again, a twitch, barely there, but alive. Malik's heart did not race. He did not panic. He simply nodded once, understanding. Then he stepped back and said nothing. Because Malik was not just loyal, he was smart. If she was waking, then something bigger was coming, and the worst thing he could do was let the wrong people know. The next day, Lee returned, Amara beside him. Same calm, same confidence, same mistake. They still believed she was gone. Lee stood near the bed, looking down at her. "You should have died," he said quietly. No emotion, just truth. Amara crossed her arms. "It would have been easier," she added. Stephanie listened. Every word, every tone, every detail. Lee continued. "The cartel is getting impatient," he said. Stephanie focused. "Important. They want full control," he added. Amara frowned slightly. "We gave them access," she said. "That's not enough?" Lee shook his head. "They want her network," he said. "They want everything." Stephanie's mind moved fast, so this was not over. The cartel was still involved, still pushing, still dangerous. Amara leaned closer. "What happens if she wakes?" she asked. Lee smiled slightly. "Then we finish it properly." Silence. Cold. Final. Stephanie did not react, but inside, she marked that moment, because now she knew. If she woke too early, she would die. Days passed. Then weeks. Stephanie stayed still. Silent. Listening, but inside, she was changing. Her mind grew stronger, sharper, faster. Her body slowly followed. Tiny movements, small control, nothing obvious, nothing dangerous, just enough. Because she was not rushing. Rushing was for weak people. Stephanie St. Clair was patient. Malik returned often, watching, waiting, protecting, without saying a word, because he understood now. She was not gone. She was preparing, and preparation was always more dangerous than action. One night, when the room was empty, Stephanie tried again. Her fingers moved, stronger this time. Her breathing shifted, just slightly, and for the first time in 3 years, her eyes almost opened. Almost, but she stopped, because now was not the time. Not yet. Not until she knew everything. Not until she controlled the outcome. Not until every enemy stepped into the open. Because when Stephanie St. Clair finally woke up, it would not be survival, it would be judgment. Night fell quietly. The hospital was calm. Too calm. Malik stood inside the room again, watching, always watching. Stephanie lay still. But this time, her finger moved again, not random, not weak, intentional. Malik's eyes sharpened. He stepped closer, slow, careful. Then it happened again. A second movement, slight, controlled. That was enough. Malik leaned in slightly. "Understood," he whispered. Stephanie did not respond, but she didn't need to, because that movement was not recovery, it was communication, and Malik knew her well enough to understand. She was not waking yet. She was preparing. He straightened up, walked out of the room, and for the first time in 3 years, Malik gave an order. "Reduce access," he said to the guards. "No one enters without clearance." The game had changed, and only 2 people knew it. The next morning, Lee arrived again. Amara beside him, confident, relaxed, blind. They walked into the room like always. No fear, no caution. Lee checked his phone. "We need to move faster," he said. "The cartel is pushing." Amara frowned. "They're getting greedy," she said. Lee nodded. They always were. Stephanie listened carefully. Every word mattered now. Amara crossed her arms. "What about Malik?" she asked. Stephanie focused instantly. Lee paused, then shrugged. "He's loyal," he said. "But loyalty fades." Amara didn't look convinced. "He watches too much," she said. Lee smirked slightly. "Then we remove him when the time comes." Silence. Cold. Simple. Stephanie marked it. Malik was now a target. That changed everything, because Malik was her eyes, her shield, her only active piece. And now, they wanted him gone. Stephanie's fingers moved slightly again. Slow. Hidden. But this time, it wasn't just movement. It was decision. Malik received the message. Not in words, not in speech, but in pattern. He returned that night. Closed the door behind him, checked the room. Clear. Then he stood beside her. 2 movements, he said quietly. A warning. Understood. Stephanie remained still, but her breathing shifted slightly. Malik saw it. That was confirmation. "They're planning something," he continued. "Cartel pressure, internal shift, and me." Then his voice hardened. "I'll handle it." He stepped back, already thinking, already moving ahead. Because Malik was not just loyal, he was dangerous in silence. Within hours, changes began. Guard rotations shifted, access logs restricted, unknown faces removed. No noise, no attention, just control. And slowly, the hospital stopped being open ground. It became territory again. Her territory. Across the city, the cartel met. Not small men, not weak men, real power. They sat around a long table, waiting. One of them spoke. It's taking too long. Lee stood across from them, trying to look calm. It's under control, he said. The room stayed silent, not convinced. Another man leaned forward. You promised us her network, he said. Not delays. Amara stood beside Lee, still, watching, learning. Lee continued. We already control her ports, he said. Her routes, her contacts. The man cut him off. No, he said. You control access. We want ownership. Silence dropped hard, because ownership meant one thing: full takeover, permanent control. Lee's jaw tightened. That was not the deal, he said. The man smiled slightly. Deals change. Stephanie's world just became clearer. This was bigger than betrayal. This was takeover, and Lee was losing control of the very people he trusted. Back in the hospital, Stephanie made her first real move. Small, invisible, but powerful. Her breathing changed, just slightly, enough for machines to react. A nurse noticed. She's stabilizing, the nurse said. Doctors were called. Tests were run. Noise increased. Attention shifted. Exactly what she wanted. Lee was informed. Amara too. They rushed in, watching, waiting, fear creeping in for the first time. Is she waking? Amara asked. The doctor shook his head. Not yet, he said, but her body is responding. Silence, heavy. Lee stepped closer, studying her, suspicious now, careful now, but still blind, because he didn't know the truth. Stephanie was not waking. She was controlling the timing. She was pulling attention. She was forcing reactions, because now everyone was watching her again. And when people watch closely, they make mistakes. Stephanie stayed still, silent, patient, because the trap was no longer forming. It was set, and very soon, someone would step into it. The room was quiet, machines steady, lights soft. Stephanie lay still, like always, until her fingers curled, slow, controlled. Then her eyes opened, not wide, not shocked, just open, cold, focused, alive. The world did not rush in. She took it, piece by piece, the ceiling, the light, the silence. 3 years gone, and yet her mind was still ahead. She closed her eyes again, not because she was weak, because she was choosing. Timing mattered, and this moment was not for them. Not yet. A nurse entered minutes later. Routine check, half-focused, until she froze. Her eyes widened. Doctor, she gasped. The room changed instantly. Footsteps, voices, movement, but Stephanie stayed still again, eyes closed, body calm, because now they knew, and that was the beginning. Lee arrived fast, Amara beside him. No calm now, no confidence, only tension. What happened? Lee asked sharply. The doctor spoke quickly. She responded, he said. Eye movement, muscle reaction. Silence, heavy. Amara stepped closer, looking at Stephanie's face, searching. Are you sure? She asked. The doctor nodded. She's coming back. Those words hit differently now, not like hope, like danger. Lee's jaw tightened. Amara's fingers curled slightly, fear, real, uncontrolled. Lee leaned closer to Stephanie, studying her, watching for any sign. But Stephanie gave him nothing, no movement, no reaction, nothing. And that was worse, because now he didn't know, and men like him feared what they couldn't control. Night came again, quiet, still, empty, only one person in the room, Lee, standing beside her, watching, waiting, thinking. He leaned closer, voice low. If you wake up, he said, I'll finish what I started. Silence. Cold. Final. And then Stephanie spoke. Soft, dry, but clear. I know. Lee froze, his entire body locked. Slowly, very slowly. Stephanie opened her eyes. This time, she did not close them. She looked at him, direct, unblinking, alive. Lee stepped back. Shock. Real, raw, impossible to hide. You, he muttered. Stephanie's voice came again. Calm, controlled. You talk too much. Silence filled the room, heavy, crushing. Lee could not move, could not think, because the woman he buried was now looking straight at him. And she was not confused. She was not weak. She was aware of everything. The next morning, everyone was there. Doctors, guards, Amara, Lee, and Malik. Standing quietly at the back, watching. Stephanie sat up, slow, controlled. I know struggle, no weakness. Even after 3 years. She did not look broken. She looked returned. Amara tried to speak. Stephanie, don't. One word. That was all. Amara stopped immediately. Silence followed. Stephanie looked around the room, taking everything in. Then, her eyes landed on Lee. You said you would finish it, she said calmly. Lee said nothing. Couldn't. Stephanie tilted her head slightly. Try. The air shifted instantly, because that was not a challenge. That was permission. And everyone in that room felt it. The power had returned, and it was not soft. Stephanie stood, slow, careful, but steady. No one helped her. No one moved, because no one dared. She took one step forward, then another, stopping in front of Lee. Close. Too close. He didn't step back, but he wanted to. Stephanie looked at him, not with anger, not with pain, but with something worse, judgment. You planned it well, she said quietly. Lee swallowed hard. She continued. Cartel support, convoy hit, clean execution. You almost succeeded. Silence. Dead silence. Amara's breathing became uneven. Lee's hands tightened. Stephanie leaned slightly closer and whispered, But you made one mistake. You talked. She stepped back. Then, without warning, she turned, looked at Malik. Close the doors. Malik moved instantly. Locked, sealed, no exit. Stephanie faced them again, and for the first time, a faint smile touched her face. Cold, final. Now, she said, we begin properly. And in that moment, everyone in that room understood one thing. The woman they tried to bury was not back to survive. She was back to destroy. The doors were locked. No one moved. No one spoke. Stephanie stood at the center of the room, calm, still, in control. Her eyes shifted from Lee to Amara, then to you first. Her voice was quiet, but final. Amara's breath caught. Stephanie, listen. Don't speak. 2 words. Sharp. Amara froze. Stephanie stepped closer. Not fast, not aggressive, just certain. You were dying, Stephanie said. I remember. Silence. You couldn't breathe. You couldn't stand. You begged me. Stephanie's eyes hardened. And I gave you my life. Amara's lips trembled. I didn't. Stop. Stephanie raised a finger slightly. Amara went silent again. Because something in that room had changed. Talking was no longer allowed. Only truth. You didn't betray me, Stephanie said calmly. You replaced me. And now, her voice dropped. You're no longer needed. Amara's eyes widened. Fear, real fear. Stephanie turned slightly. Malik. 1 word. That was all. Malik stepped forward, silent, efficient, deadly. Amara backed up. No, wait. Too late. Malik grabbed her. Firm, controlled. No struggle lasted long. The room stayed quiet, because no one dared interfere. Not Lee, Not the doctors, no one. Stephanie didn't watch long. She already decided. And once she decided, it was over. Lee stood still, but inside, he was breaking, not loudly, not visibly, but deeply, because everything he built was collapsing in front of him. Stephanie turned to him slowly. "You wanted my position," she said. Lee tried to speak. Nothing came out. "You studied me," she continued, "and you followed me. You learned from me. And still," her eyes locked onto his, "you were never enough." Those words hit harder than anything else, because they were true. Lee clenched his jaw, trying to recover, trying to stand his ground. "You think this ends here?" he said. Weak, forced. Stephanie didn't react. "You made deals," she said calmly. "Cartel. Access. Routes. Names." Every word tightened the room. Lee's confidence cracked, because she knew everything. "You didn't just betray me," she added. "You sold me." Silence. Heavy. Final. Stephanie stepped closer. "You don't deserve death yet." Lee froze, confused, fear growing. Stephanie's voice softened slightly. "That would be mercy." She paused. "You'll live long enough to watch everything you tried to take disappear." Lee said nothing, because now he understood. Death was not his punishment. Loss was. Within hours, the city changed. Orders moved fast, quiet, precise. Malik led everything. Ports were locked. Routes were reclaimed. Contacts were reset. Every man who switched loyalty was removed. No noise, no warning, just gone, because Stephanie St. Clair did not rebuild. She restored. And what was hers returned quickly. Meetings were called. Old allies came back. This time, with respect. Real respect. Because now they knew. She survived. And anyone who could survive that was not someone you challenged. Her name spread again. Fast, sharp, heavy, Adiza. And just like that, the balance shifted. Not slowly, not gradually, instantly. The cartel received the news. At first, they didn't believe it. "She's awake?" Silence filled their room. Then, confirmation came, clear, undeniable. Stephanie St. Clair was alive and moving. One of them leaned back slowly. "This changes things." Another shook his head. "No," he said. "It ends things." Because they understood something important. They didn't fail to kill her. They failed to finish her. And that was worse. Orders were given quickly. "Move everything. Shut down exposure. Cut ties with Lee." But it was too late, because Stephanie already knew. And when she knew, she moved faster than fear. Night fell again. But this time, the city felt different, heavier, controlled. Stephanie stood at the top floor of her building, looking out, calm, silent. Malik stood behind her, waiting. "Everything is back in position," he said. Stephanie nodded once. Then, "Send the message." Malik didn't ask. He moved. Within minutes, every major player received it. Simple, clear, direct. "She's back." No explanation, no warning, no negotiation, just truth. And that truth spread fast. Fear followed it, because everyone knew what came next. Stephanie turned slightly, looking at Malik. "Prepare them," she said. "For what?" he asked. She paused. Then, "For war." Her voice didn't rise, didn't change, but the meaning was clear. This was not revenge anymore. This was correction. And anyone involved would not survive it. Stephanie St. Clair had returned, and this time, she wasn't just protecting her empire, she was cleansing it. It started without noise. No announcement, no warning, just movement. Across the city, men disappeared, warehouses went dark, routes stopped working, phones stopped connecting. The cartel tried to respond, but they were already behind. Because Stephanie did not fight wars the normal way. She didn't attack loudly. She removed quietly. By the time they realized what was happening, half of their structure was gone. Clean, precise, untraceable. Malik moved through it all like a shadow, executing orders, closing gaps, erasing threats, and Stephanie watched. Because this was never about chaos. This was about control, and by sunrise, the war was over. Not because the cartel surrendered, but because there was nothing left for them to control. The ones who survived came quietly. No weapons, no pride, just fear. They stood before her, men who once believed they could control her, now asking for terms. "We made a mistake," one of them said. Stephanie didn't respond. Silence stretched, heavy, uncomfortable. "We can fix this," another added. Still nothing. Then Stephanie spoke. "You already fixed it." Confusion crossed their faces. She stepped forward slightly. "By surviving," she said. "That saved me time." They didn't understand, but Malik did, because survival meant identification, and identification meant elimination. Stephanie looked at them one last time. "You came here," she said calmly, "so I don't have to find you." That was it. No raised voice, no threats, just truth. And everyone in that room knew they were already dead. Lee was brought in later. Not dragged, not beaten, just brought, because his punishment was different. He walked into the room slowly, looking around, seeing what was left. Nothing. No allies, no power, no control. Stephanie stood across from him, calm, unmoved. "You did all this," he said quietly. Not a question, a realization. Stephanie didn't answer. She didn't need to. Lee laughed once. Dry, broken. "I almost had it," he said. "I was that close." Stephanie looked at him. Not with anger, not with hate, with truth. "You were never close." Those words ended him. Not physically, completely. Because deep down, he knew. He always knew. He was standing beside power, not becoming it. Lee lowered his head slightly. No fight left. No illusion left. Just emptiness. And Stephanie let him stand there. Because this was his punishment. She to see everything and realize it was never his. The room was quiet again. Everyone gone. Only Stephanie and Malik remained. "Do you want him finished?" Malik asked. Stephanie didn't answer immediately. She walked slowly, thinking, calculating. Then she stopped. "No," she said. Malik looked at her, understanding. "You'll let him live?" he asked. Stephanie nodded once. "Yes." Without power, without respect, without anything he tried to take. She turned slightly, looking back at Lee. "This is worse." Malik said nothing, because he agreed. Death ends pain, but living without meaning, that destroys a man slowly. Stephanie walked away. Decision made. Final. Morning came. Bright, clear. The city moved again, but differently. Controlled, stable, corrected. Stephanie stood where she belonged. She's at the top, not louder, not more visible, just present. And that was enough. Because power doesn't need to prove itself. It just needs to exist. Malik stood beside her. "Everything is done," he said. Stephanie nodded slightly. Then she spoke. Calm, certain. "The mistake they made," she paused. Then continued, "was thinking I was gone." She looked out over the city, eyes steady, unshaken, because she didn't come back to rebuild. She came back to remind everyone of something simple. Power doesn't disappear. It waits. And when it returns, it doesn't ask for permission. It takes everything back. Stephanie St. Clair, Aditsa, never fell. She only went silent. And silence was the most dangerous thing she ever gave them. Some people thought she was gone. Some thought she was weak. Some even believed they had replaced her. But power doesn't disappear. It waits. And when it returns, it doesn't ask questions. It doesn't explain. It ends things. Stephanie St. Clair didn't come back to survive. She came back to remind the world that silence was the most dangerous move she ever made. If you made it this far, you already know. This wasn't just a story. This was a warning. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the next story might be even more dangerous.